we'll see what happens. And everything I saw on Twitter too is pitcher might be getting an interview too. So I don't want to lose both of them. That's my thing. If Callahan leaves and becomes a head coach somewhere, I'm hoping pitcher becomes, the offensive coordinator. Those are things that things are going to change, even if Zach doesn't change it himself. So offensive line coordinator looks like it could change because if Callahan doesn't get it this year, I don't know if he's going to and people are like, well, the offense was so up and down this year. He's going to get it for what a great job he did of getting Jake Browning ready to play and making Jake Browning a very, very good quarterback. That's why Callahan is getting these interviews. That's why this coaching staff is so respected because let's be honest here. Chiefs fans drive me nuts. I've been saying I kind of put something out there, which I got it from Cincinnati. They put it out first, and I just copied the information. Well, I made it my own, but I got the information from them. But which I think I knew this. But Joe Burrow is 5-1 versus Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And of course, I put that out there, and everybody's like, "Oh, have fun sitting on the couch." I'm like, "Well, just be lucky we're not in the playoffs." Because look, it's like Bam Bam said on the show Tuesday. I think with Joe Burrow, we could have beaten anybody that played last weekend. I think we could beat anybody that plays this weekend. And that includes the Ravens. Now, don't get me wrong, the Ravens are playing very well, and there's a very good chance that I'm going to hate the Super Bowl. It's a very good chance it's going to be the Ravens and the Sucky Niners, and I'd absolutely hate that. I had to deal with that about 10 years ago when Joe Flacco went on his run, and they ended up winning the whole thing. I was hoping they both lose. It could happen again this year. But I'm cool with a Detroit-Houston Super Bowl. That would be cool with me. All right, let's see here. Let's get some more questions here or comments here. Michael says, beef up the D-line. I agree with that. And me, it's up the middle because we don't know, one, if they're going to re-sign DJ Reader. Two, how quickly he will be back, from his injury. I have not heard a timetable yet. Josh Tupou's a free agent. Zach Carter is what he is. We still have not replaced Larry O, and that's been one of the biggest things for me since Larry Ogunjobi left, that we have not really replaced him. So that's one that I think they need. There's two things. They need to not necessarily replace DJ, but they are going to have somebody eventually to replace him. I don't think Zach Carter is the guy. And like I said, we have not had anybody replace Larry O, and that helps Larry. That helps DJ Reader out and BJ Hill. All right, he has made it. He is in the waiting room. I'm so happy. He is one of my favorite guys. I knew he'd show up. I knew he would. I knew my boy Trags would show up. But let's get the Trags. What's going on, Trags? How you doing, brother?
Iceman, how are you? I hope you can hear me a-okay.
Absolutely. You're coming in loud and clear. We're just doing a little discussion of the Bengals offseason moves. And Mike Callahan is on his, I think fourth interview. I heard pitchers got an interview somewhere. My concern is I don't want to lose both of them. If Callahan leaves, I think pitcher steps up to become the OC. What are you hearing?
Well, the one concern I would have is that Callahan leaves and takes picture with him. And
I've said that too. Yeah.
And, that is the one thing that I think the Bengals, that's the worst case scenario for the Bengals, I think. And then it's going to be up to Zach Taylor to dip into his vast network of contacts around the NFL. And they're pretty extensive at this point.
Right.
He's entering his sixth season as head coach of the Bengals. He's got people around the NFL, and the Bengals and the offense will continue. They will move on in 2024 with or without Brian Callahan and with or without Dan Pitcher. I think, if Brian Callahan gets the opportunity that I think certainly Zach Taylor believes he deserves at this point, and he's proven he can handle. I think the hope is that maybe they can squeeze out another year from Dan Pitcher, promote him up to offensive coordinator, which if the Bengals could do that, that would be something that would certainly play a role, I think, in whether or not Dan Pitcher would want to stay in the organization. Do you want to stay in an organization and get a promotion to full OC with Zach Taylor still doing the play calling? or do you want to go somewhere else where your opportunity may be not only offensive coordinator, but also play calling, but you're not as familiar with the quarterback situation, and the quarterback certainly may not be as talented as Joe Burrow.
Not many are. Not many are.
And that's one thing I think Dan Pitcher has to consider when he is interviewing in these positions.
Another question we had that we're talking about, and I think this is a big concern, is beefing up the defensive line with the injury of DJ Reader. Yep. We don't know, one, if he's coming back, when he's coming back. And I said this for like the last 2 years. We still have never really replaced Larry Ogunjobi. That's one that I think is hurt DJ and BJ Hill, the absence of Larry O. Zach Carter really hasn't stepped up. I think that's the biggest concern as T. Higgins and Jonah Williams is that defensive line.
I don't think there's any question about that. And I think where the Bengals got beat up this year when they got manhandled was in between the tackles.
Right.
DJ Reader couldn't do it all. The Bengals were weak against the run. We all know that. I mean, Reader had still another terrific year for the Bengals, but he couldn't do it. He can't do it all. And the Bengals on the edge were not good against the run. The linebackers, I think it's been well documented, did not have a great year in run fits. And that presented some problems, especially against the Ravens and the Cleveland Browns early on. And, the other thing I would say that really factored into that, Iceman, is the fact that they weren't able to play complementary football, really, with the exception of 5 games this year. And when they did, they were 5-0 with Joe Burrow healthy, being able to dictate the terms of the game. When they had to rely on the Bengals getting off the field and not having Joe Burrow, it was a different story, at least early on. Certainly Jake Browning and the run game, when they modified what they were as an offense, I actually think that helped the Bengals in that 3-game winning stretch against the teams that, really got them back into the playoff hunt. That would be, of course, Indianapolis and Minnesota, 2 of those 3. They have to find a way to really beef up that interior defensive line. There's no doubt about that. I don't know if Chris Jones is the answer. He certainly is.
A lot of people are talking about it. I don't know if we can afford him, though.
Well, I mean, I think you can always afford one player, but you're going to have to make adjustments elsewhere on the roster. And that's what the Bengals have to decide. Where can they make cuts that they wouldn't ordinarily make? Could they make them here? Mm-hmm. And the thing that is intriguing to me is this the offseason where they acknowledge that, we wish we could have brought Jesse Bates back. I don't think Jesse Bates was ever coming back here with David as the agent.
I agree with you.
Arguing that point to me is really, kind of spitting in the wind. It's just going to come back on you. It's not going to do any good. And I just don't think he was with his agent, his representation. I don't think Jesse Bates was ever coming back here. The Bengals were willing to go a certain amount on him. Maybe they should have gone a little bit higher, but in the end, I think he was going to get that $64 million deal with the Falcons, and the Bengals were not going to approach that.
Yeah, that's what scares me with T, because that's the same agent, and that's what
It is.
said. I don't
think the dynamic is a little bit different, because I think there's more of a willingness for T to want to come back here. I think there's more of a willingness for on Joe Burrow's behalf for the Bengals to fight a little bit harder for T to come back. There was no, willingness, I think, for the Bengals to fight to get Jesse Bates back on the team, because they believe that Dax Hill and a free agent, and it turned out to be Nick Scott, was going to be the answer.
Right.
And then you plug in Jordan Battle, and they now going forward, they believe, I think, one more year of Dax Hill and Jordan Battle may be worth giving a shot. However, I say that now on, January 18th. Mm-hmm. Given what the free agent market could be, you don't know if a Harrison Smith is going to be out there from the Vikings. Bengals and Zach Taylor love Harrison Smith.
Right.
Would they bring him in on a 1-year deal, really strengthen the backbone of that defense and move Dax Hill around?
Yeah.
But in a swing year for Dax Hill, give him another year to get accustomed to what's going on in the secondary. I just didn't think Dax Hill's voice was strong enough, or loud enough for that matter, in the secondary this year.
Yeah, I remember you were talking about that on your podcast, the Jungle War podcast, and I thought that was interesting You brought that up that his voice wasn't loud enough. I'm like, shoot, he's hang out with me. Trust me, I can teach him how to be loud. So I can handle that. But to your point, this is one thing I thought is they might bring in a veteran safety, maybe not necessarily to replace Dax, but another veteran presence in the room. Or like you said, they can bring him in and they can move Dax around because there's points where Dax might be a better slot corner than anything else than
Well,
safety.
the theory has been floated out there by, yours truly, among others on the beat, that Dax Hill could certainly be a replacement for Mike Hilton down the road. I'm not saying that's going to happen next year. I don't think that would be very wise, getting rid of one of the respected leaders in the secondary. I don't think the Bengals are approaching that at all. I think Mike Hilton's going to be back on the 2024 Bengals. But down the road, could Dax Hill fill that role and fill it very well? I think he could. And then maybe what you're talking about is bringing in maybe a veteran safety back there on a 2 or 3 year deal, and then telling Dax Hill, when Mike Hilton's gone, you're our guy, so be ready. And we're still and look, Lou Anarumo is going to find a way to use Dax Hill in numerous different ways and numerous different looks. And, I think that is something the Bengals certainly are considering in this offseason and should consider. It's one way they need to get better. Anybody who watched the Bengals for an extended period of time this year knows the secondary play and the safety play wasn't nearly good enough. It has to drastically improve in 2024 if the Bengals are going to get back to the playoffs.
Yeah, which I was surprised by that, Trags. I really thought that was going to be a strength, even with the two young guys. I just thought we had the speed and everything, and it really never came to fruition. Now, getting back to the offensive coordinator position, this name always comes up, but he's actually got a job right now. Joe Brady. He's the OC for Buffalo. Everybody always brings that up because of the LSU ties. If he keeps doing as good as he is in Buffalo, I'm pretty sure Buffalo is going to keep him. But what are some other names, I guess, outside? Let's just say worst case scenario, Pitcher and Callahan both leave. Who do you got a
I don't have a list. I don't have a list in front of me. I wish I did, but I would not hesitate in thinking that Zach Taylor would go to the college ranks to bring somebody in. If it's somebody from Alabama, somebody who has, demonstrated a lot of expertise in what the Bengals run, and that's 11 offense, obviously.
Right.
I don't necessarily think it's who, but what, in terms of what the offensive coordinator is going to call, what Zach wants to run here in Cincinnati. They definitely want to run an 11 personnel unit, probably 80 to 85% of the time, at least. And you're going to have to bring in an offensive coordinator who's comfortable doing that, who schemes and is familiar with those type of schemes and how to free up. One other thing I would tell you, Iceman, is the fact that I think the Bengals are going to have to work in their running backs a lot more next year.
Yes.
And whoever the new offensive coordinator is going to be, if indeed we have a new OC in 2024, they're going to have to make use, I think, of the screen game a little bit more, the draw play a little bit more. And to me, that's where the focus should be. It's not necessarily the who, but the what.
Right. And a lot of people, talked about that Joe likes go shotgun empty, which he does. But Trags, I really think that, and we're down there at training camp. At training camp, he was going under center. That was a plan that they were going to do that this year, but with the calf injury and everything else, that they got more implemented with Browning in. I do think in the future that is the plan, to do that and get the screen game going. That they were able to show what they could do with Browning.
Well, I think one of your commenters, Jim, said he would love to see a two-back set. You're not going to see that much. I think a lot of people,
they did do it a couple of times, which was surprising.
A couple of times, but you're not going to see it that much, simply because of what Joe Burrow likes to run. And let's be very clear, this offense is Joe Burrow's offense.
Yes.
It starts and ends with Joe Burrow. And we're assuming he's going to be healthy and ready to go in the second Sunday of September in 2024. And if that is the case, I don't think you're going to see a lot of two-back running sets. You're just not going to do that. But you are probably going to see Joe Burrow under center a little bit more. But the Bengals, and we heard this a lot towards the end of the season and certainly in the postseason wrap-up with Zach Taylor, the Bengals need to see more explosive plays downfield to give the threat that if you come up too close, you're not going to give up an 8 to 15 yard run. You're going to give up a 20 to 30 yard run or more downfield. With Chase Brown, you started to see that a lot more, certainly in the final month of the season when Chase Brown really got healthy. He is an exciting potential, has exciting potential for the Bengals offense going forward. How they implement Chase Brown, that's what I'm fascinated to see. What do they do with the other running back? Do they keep Joe Mixon? Do they look to get younger and cheaper with maybe perhaps drafting somebody? Do they make a trade? Do they go to the Dalvin Cook route? I mean, there's so many ways that the Bengals could go. By the way, Dalvin Cook will be active this weekend as the Ravens take on the Houston Texans. To me, that's going to be a fascinating game.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be there's a lot of very interesting games this weekend. Now, you brought it up on your podcast with the GOAT there with oh my goodness, why can't I think of his name? The writer for the Bengals.
Oh, Butch Hobson.
Yeah, Butch. Thank you. I hate when I do that. I got it. I had the name in my head, and then I start talking. And I'm like, anyway, Butch Hobson. And you brought it up on your podcast, and it was a big topic of discussion last year. And it's going to be a big topic of discussion this year. But Joe Mixon, is he your number one next year? Is Chase Brown your number one? Is Mixon even on the team? Are they going to draft somebody? I mean, I don't know, Trags. I mean, I think Chase Brown right now is the future, but I could see them. They got to add to the room either way, I think.
Oh, there's no question that they have to. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a running back room that could have turnover of 3 of the 4 spots. Mm-hmm. If you include Chris Evans and obviously Travion Williams. Joe Mixon right now, if the Bengals have a better choice, I think they're going to go younger and cheaper, and Joe Mixon won't be on the roster. But he certainly gives you that 2 to 3 yard, 4 yard carry when you really, really need it, usually. Yeah. There were times this year where the Bengals obviously didn't get 4th and 1. Everybody will bring up what happened with the Pittsburgh game. That was, at the end of the first half, that was a killer. There was a moment, I believe, twice inside the 5-yard line against the Arizona Cardinals. Mixon couldn't get it done. But I put a lot of that on really the run blocking, the schemes, the Bengals not getting out of a certain look and just giving it to Joe Mixon and say, here, have at it, when there was no holes to run through. To me, that's the way I look at that. Again, it's not just the personnel with the running game for the Bengals. It's the scheming. Right. It's the personnel that you have on the field around the running back. Those are the things you have to take into consideration. The Bengals have to have some tough decisions to make next year on how to modify the run game. I think right now they are not going to overspend on a running back, but if there's an option there that is a perfect fit, then they'll pursue that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the way of the NFL. Nobody spends on running backs. I mean, I was shocked that they don't draft one. Now, my question is, and I was shocked they didn't draft this, was a tight end. They didn't get one. We've seen all the tight ends that we could have drafted. Half of them are playing in the playoffs. And I'm like, oh, my God. Anyway, so do you think, are they going to draft a tight end? I mean, I don't think the kid from Georgia is going to be there at 18. But if he is, if Blake Bowers is there, do you draft him?
Depends on what's there. And Dalton Kincaid obviously was somebody who Zach Taylor loved last year, and he went to the Buffalo Bills and he was not available. He's somebody I'm sure the Bengals would have liked to have gotten their hands on. But, remember all of the talk about Michael Mayer going into the draft?
I wanted to draft him.
Well, as it turned out, the Bengals were not as keen on Michael Mayer. And I guess as it turned out, for good reason. He was not the prototypical 3-legged tight end that Zach Taylor loves. That means pass block, run block, and catch the ball. And Dalton Kincaid for the Bills definitely was that, or Dalton Schultz. Now I'm getting my Daltons confused. Dalton Schultz.
I'm rubbing off on you, Trags. I'm rubbing off on you.
Dalton Schultz is a potential free agent this year. If he's available in free agency, I would not be surprised to see the Bengals make a legitimate run at him, because that could upgrade the weapons that Joe Burrow is going to have. And when you're talking about losing potentially T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, you're going to have to add a playmaker there, and adding a playmaker at tight end to me would make too much sense not to do it.
And they try, so
at least pursue it.
Right. If we can get a tight end who can block and pass, and then he could be in most of the time. So I don't know, when Drew Sample's in there, he did catch passes this year, but 99% of the time it's a run.
Right.
It would help disguise things. That's where I would hope they do this.
Well, and that's one thing, Iceman, that Zach Taylor did bring up. That it's not that they don't like the tight ends that they have. It's the issue you run into when you're scheming against the Bengals is personnel is an easy give on what the Bengals are about to do.
Right.
And when Drew Sample was in the game, when Drew Sample was in the game, it was 9 times out of 10, maybe higher, that they were going to run the ball. When Tanner Hudson was in the game, 9 times out of 10,
split out wide.
he was split out wide, or he was running a vertical. It was going to be a pass. Bengals want to get away from that predictability, and that's why you want. When people say, why are tight ends like that so valuable? Well, because you want to throw in a tight end who's equally strong pass blocking, run blocking, and catching the ball. And he becomes another weapon that isn't, a really easy tell about what the offense is about to do.
Right, exactly. That would be such a big weapon to actually.
By the way, I see Adam Phillips here. I think Tanner Hudson's a terrific tight end.
I was going to go. Yes, go ahead.
And if there's nothing available, the Bengals will not overspend. Certainly, if Dalton Schultz is available and it's a reasonable price, Bengals will pursue him. I don't think there's any question about that. But I think they like what they have in Tanner Hudson. It'll just be a matter of do the Bengals have the resources to keep him around?
Yeah, I mean, for me, if your tight end room is Tanner Hudson, Drew Sample, and Schultz, or somebody else that they got that can do both, that's a great tight end room. And I was banging Tanner Hudson's drum like in training camp. I saw him from the bridge and going, who the hell is 87? I'm like, wow. So I was surprised that he didn't make it from training camp. But yeah, I think, my personal opinion, I think Tanner Hudson and Drew Sample are going to be our 2 tight ends in the room. If it's 1 and 2, I don't know. It depends on if they add somebody. But those 2, I think, are definitely coming back for next year. I want to get to you guys are blowing the chat up. I appreciate it. I'm going to get to Crips here. Comment here. Here's Mr. Petraglia. Is your dad here? Or is it you? I think you're Trags. Anyway, what's the biggest chance for next season? Not re-signing T or not re-signing an established defensive lineman?
I would say right now, not re-signing T is more likely than not re-signing a defensive interior lineman, just because I think the Bengals know that they have to address the interior of the defensive line, and there are going to be several quality free agents out there in the defensive line. And I think what you're going to find, and I've felt this way for the last couple of weeks, is that the defensive line, interior defensive line, is going to be a lot like the offensive line was for the Bengals when the Orlando Brown Jr. signing came out of the blue in I believe, the second night of free agency. Having trouble remembering.
I remember it was a Bearcat basketball game, and I was down here watching, and somebody tweeted it out. I'm like, what? And I ran over and went live because I was going.
I remember. I'll tell you where I was. I was at UD Arena for the first night of the first 4, and I got a text, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, I guess my priorities for the night.
Like, damn it, I gotta go to work now. God.
So anyway, I think it's more likely that the Bengals sign a stud defensive interior lineman. I think re-signing T is going to take some work. I still have trouble thinking that the Bengals are going to get past T's representation, but maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised, and maybe Bengal fans will be as well.
I hope so. That's been the worry for me ever since I found out who David Mulligata is. I don't know. Let's see here. All right, Tebow here has got a question, and I have not done any deep dive into the draft at all. So I don't know if you have or not.
I'm not either. So
Kate Stover as a 3rd or 4th round pick. I don't even know who that is, to be honest. I got to talk to Dale. Dale's my draft guy. He's the one that educates me. He's
Oh,
already
he's a
done.
tight. Yeah, I know who he is.
He's
He's
tight end.
tight end for Ohio State.
Oh, okay.
If he's certainly is available, he was in a passing offense. He was a big part of the Ohio State offense when certainly their offense needed third down conversions. And when you're talking about playing with Marvin Harrison Jr., certainly you're going to get double teams on him, and the tight end is going to come open. That sound familiar?
Yeah.
Certainly, when you have Jamar Chase on the field, and even if Bengals are not able to bring back T, but bring in another stud wide receiver, you have two wide receivers that are going to be featured in the Bengal offense, regardless if it's T or not. The tight end has the ability to get open downfield and make big plays. And certainly a Cade Stover, he is somebody I think that would fit into the Bengals offensive scheme.
Yeah, and one thing I just get tired of hearing this narrative, and I've heard other people say this a lot, that it doesn't really matter who the Bengals tight end is, they don't use them. I'm like, that's not true. Look, I mean, they threw to him.
Not true.
They threw to him more this year than they had before. I'm like, Joe, and I said this before, I don't think Joe cares who he throws the ball to as long as you're open. And he trusts you to catch the ball, obviously. He's got to trust you to catch it. But if you're open and he trusts you, he's going to throw you the ball. And you just know, look at what he did for CJ Uzomah and Hayden Hutchinson, just how much money they got after him for how much Joe used him. So this narrative that the Bengals offense doesn't use tight end, everybody needs to forget that. That's not true. If you get an elite tight end, trust me, they're going to use it, and it's going to be an extra weapon, especially. And that's for me. If they, let's say they let Tyler Boyd go, which I think that's probably going to happen, and let's say hopefully they re-sign T. If you get that tight end, that opens up the middle even more, and that's what Tyler Boyd was doing, and that's just another weapon. That to me, Trags, that can make our offense even more explosive than it has, and hopefully more consistent.
Everything starts with getting Joe Burrow healthy, Iceman. And if Joe Burrow's healthy and throwing down the field, and he has his timing back, and he doesn't have to, get up to speed like he clearly did in the first 4 weeks of this year, I think you're going to see huge strides from the offense next year. The Bengals need to see Joe Burrow in the preseason. I'm more convinced of that than ever. And I know certainly the Bengals want to protect their number one investment. I do get that. But you cannot have Joe Burrow going into the season
hurt again.
Not only hurt, but out of rhythm.
Yeah.
And I think even if Joe Burrow is fully healthy, if he sits out the entire preseason, to expect him to go into game number one at full speed and executing at a high level, I think that's unrealistic. So the Bengals have to take a close, hard look at how they're preparing leading into the regular season. And I think a lot of things are going to change this offseason in terms of the way Zach Taylor and his staff really lay out the preparation, from OTAs to conditioning to weightlifting to everything. Everything in the offseason is going to get re-examined, and I think there's going to be a significant number of adjustments made in the way the Bengals approach the offseason.
Yeah, I agree with that because they've got to get off to a better start. These get off these slow starts, these 0-3, 2-1 starts. That can't happen. And to your point, and it's not even just Joe Burrow. I think the offense in general needs to play some in the preseason so they can get their timing together. Because there's difference from training camp, practice to actual game. Now, this preseason is an actual game, but it's close as you're going to get to an actual game. So that I agree. They got to change. I think they're going to, because just the way the last couple of years have went, that slow start has hurt them, and it really hurt us this year.
I want to get to some of these comments.
Good.
First of all, I love Paul from the UK.
I was going to get that. I had my hand on the clicker there. My boy Paul there. Yep, he's awesome.
I love him, and I've met him in the press room. He's a terrific guy. Jonah Williams, I think there is a possibility the Bengals bring him back.
I hope so. That's a big one for me.
Do I think it's likely? I'd say it's a little less than 50%, but I know they like him. They love the way he approached the right tackle spot after being asked to move over there from his ordinary or his typical left tackle starting position and make room for Orlando Brown Jr. look, he was upset with the way it got handled and upset with the communication process that was involved. But once he made the move, there was no complaining. He went about his business. He had a great season at right tackle for the Bengals. He graded out. I think PFF had him north of 75.5 rating grade for the year. He had a very good year for the Bengals. Maybe he arguably had the best year of any offensive lineman for the Bengals.
Right, and that's what I thought too, because some people are still like, "Oh, he's still mad." I'm like, I don't think he's mad. I think he
got over it, which is another reason to really like Jonah and his disposition. And one reason I think the Bengals would explore bringing him back, but again, the price has to be right. Re-signing, I see Brad's comment. Should they try to re-sign Tyler Boyd if they can't sign T? I think those are apples and oranges. They're different types of receivers. And I think if you don't re-sign T. Higgins, you got to go out and get someone who can replace T. Higgins' role in the Bengals offense. I don't think they're related. And certainly the Bengals are not going to go out and spend a lot on a slot receiver when they have many other pressing needs, as we've detailed earlier. I agree with some guy who says all the A team needs preseason snaps. We've gone over that. I think the Bengals have to hit the ground running starting game one. No more 0-2 starts. And Zach Taylor's keenly aware that he's 1-9 in the first 2 games of the season in his 5 years. That's got to stop.
Now, this is the other thing that people tell me about Jonah Williams. Matt here says, Jonah's going to be too expensive.
Probably, but and that's why I say it's less than 50%.
Right.
But would the Bengals be interested in making a bid or making an offer? They might be, because certainly it's somebody they're familiar with, and Jonah knows the personnel and vice versa. The Bengals know Jonah. So I think there is some value to that.
Michael here said another one he had. Michael Madsen said, "Can we see Joe under center more?" Would you kind of discuss that? I think that is going to happen. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. The Bengals alluded to that midway through the season. Brian Callahan and Zach both indicated that they'd probably try to get Joe under center a little bit more to give more impact to the run game, give more impact and exposure to the play action game, which I don't think the Bengals do nearly enough with Joe Burrow. I think that can be really effective. And so I think you're going to see a little bit more under the run game. The idea of getting the quarterback under center is you get the running back going downhill fast and harder. And that's, I think, what the Bengals need from their running attack.
Now, 2 things I want to say about Jonah and T. And I kind of think, and I don't want to put it as a team. I hate the team friendly thing. It sounds like they're taking, a bath or whatever in the money. But what Trey Henderson did last year, Pratt did, Logan Wilson, they got paid. They didn't get the big money they could have because they like it here. They like playing for Zach. They like the locker room. That's why I think there's a chance that T could do that and Jonah. And because Joe, you said you were in the press conference when Joe said, in not so many words, that there are places and structures in place in his contract to help out or however he put it, that he could do something to help bring these guys back. That's where I'm like, I'm not totally sold that these guys are definitely gone. We definitely can't afford them. They're going to want too much money. Am I crazy in that thought process?
No, I think you're spot on. And certainly Joe Burrow made that inference with regard to T. Higgins. Right. And I think I don't necessarily know if he made that same accommodation, if you will, for Jonah Williams.
Well, Jonah might be more like Logan Wilson and Pratt, where they just take
right. But I think for his weapons, I think Joe Burrow had that discussion directly with his agent and with certainly Duke Tobin and the Blackburns that, hey, look, if I'm going to sign this deal, I want weapons around me. And that's part of the deal. It's the only way I'm going to sign the deal is if you keep weapons around me. Right. And the attitude was, okay, if that's the case, we'll make this work, but maybe we have to defer money out of years 2, 3, and 4, push that down the road. And, that's probably what he is referring to. He got a good amount of money, obviously, up front. He got $219 million, I believe it was, fully guaranteed of the $275 million extension. So what is the wiggle room? That is in the devil is in the details, as they say, and I think that's where the Bengals could find some have some found money to re-sign a guy like T. Higgins.
Hey, that's good money if you can get it. That's Mike Petraglia money right there.
Yeah, I would.
All right. So one thing that Joe did all that with his weapons. I'm hoping that, like I said, I think keeping Jonah Williams is a big deal. The reason being, one of the biggest reasons is I think it's been the best offensive line Joe's played in front of or behind. And Trags, if you had the same 5 guys back-to-back years, all that does is help them get better. So, I mean, everybody can say what they want about Jonah Williams because I don't know why people hate on him so much. But for me, that's an even bigger deal that we had the same 5 guys come back. If they can do that, that can just improve their line, just that alone.
If that's feasible. And
right.
You're not going to overpay. Bengals are not going to be fiscally irresponsible
no.
back
right.
Jonah Williams, who's a terrific, tackle, but they're not going to overspend in that regard.
Right.
Certainly, the draft is a potential. Can they get another Penei Sewell type of prospect coming down the pike? Obviously, and I have no problem with the Bengals taking Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell. I'm not even going to broach that subject.
Well, that ship sailed. We talked about that forever.
The Bengals have always done a great job of surrounding their quarterbacks with weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, you go through the last 20 years, the Bengals have always stayed true to that philosophy. And I think that will continue this offseason. They're going to have to do a better job drafting offensive linemen, period. Yeah. Jonah Williams is, they hit on him, but it took a while for Jonah Williams to grow into the player that he is. Bengals really, if you're asking me, Ice, they need to hit on an offensive lineman who can come in and play right away. I think Cordell Volson is going to be a very, very good left guard for the Bengals long term. They're going to, if they go that direction, they may have to rely on a rookie starting right tackle to come in and fill the void. And that, Chiefs have proven the Chiefs a couple of years ago with with a rookie center were able to go out and win a Super Bowl. Can the Bengals do that with a right tackle?
You never know. Now, one thing here, Matt. Now, I kind of got something. I wanted to put that. Yeah, that one. He says Mulligata ain't letting his client do a hometown discount. Now, one thing I'll say this because we actually asked Corey Dillon this on Monday's show, and Corey said T has to remember that the agent works for him, not the other way around. So if T really wants to stay here, T can say, hey, make this work. I don't want to, give him a ton of money, but make this work. So T can't do that. It's not up to David Mulligata. It's up to T.
However, a lot of these agents only take you on if the player agrees to follow them hook, line, and sinker. In other words, the agent doesn't want the player fighting him and going back on an agreement. But in this particular case, Corey's absolutely right. The player has the final say. And if the player doesn't want to sign a free agent deal with any team but the one he's working with currently, then that's the way they'll go. The reason the agent says that and does that is to keep the leverage. Exactly. Mm-hmm. You don't want the hometown team knowing that the player wants to come back.
Right.
And that's why, he tried certainly with Jesse Bates, that same strategy, but the Browns were like, well, you can go because we're not going to pay him that kind of money. I think with T, the Blackburn and Brown family would pay him the going rate for a superstar wide receiver and are more inclined. And the dynamic is totally different with T. Higgins than it was Jesse Bates. That's one thing I will say.
Now, with all this offensive line talk, I was hoping by yesterday, or at least today, we'd hear something about Big Willie getting into the Hall of Fame. And like I was just texting Corey Dill before the show started, and he hasn't heard anything. And he's on the Bengal, chat line. So have you heard anything?
No. So the way that works, and I had Jeff Hobson, as you mentioned, on my podcast this week, and he said that result will not come out. It's sealed until the Thursday before the Super Bowl. So
they haven't knocked on his door or anything yet. They haven't done all that.
No, they won't until the Thursday before the Super Bowl because, if you're wondering, they have made it into a huge production for what do they call it? NFL honors.
Yep.
On the red carpet at Super Bowl at the Super Bowl.
I
So
was hoping something would break.
that, no, nothing's going to break until the Thursday before the Super Bowl.
Well, that's maybe why Corey said that Willie told me it's a job. So I'm like, I don't know what that means. Corey said he didn't either. So maybe they're doing the production. I don't know. I was hoping I
By the way, Corey Dillon belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. That's the next one we got to get. We got to get him in, and we got to get Kenny Anderson for sure. So, we got the Bearcats, and you're covering the Bearcats now. You're broadening your horizon. You cover the Bearcats. You're gonna start covering the Reds. You can come on my show even more now, Trags. He's like, oh, great.
No, boy. No, I'd love to. Nice, man. I'd love to. You got my number. You got my DM. Slide in DMs anytime you want.
So with the Bearcats,
yes,
I had Terry Nelson on yesterday, and I'll be honest, I'm pleasantly surprised of how well they're competing in the Big 12. I was not sold. I mean, I like Wes Miller. I think Wes Miller is a good coach. Up until this year, he hasn't really gotten a big win. He's gotten them now, and these kids are fighting their asses off. Looks like they're playing Bearcat defense. They're rebounding the ball. They're missing layups, which drives me nuts. The free throws still come around. But
on Tuesday night, they missed 10 layups. Read my column on clnscincy.com, my column on the Bearcat game on Tuesday night. I wanted to break down how much grit and determination and resilience was the word Wes Miller used.
Yep.
That the Bearcats showed in beating a top 20 team.
Yep.
They were 11 of 21 at the free throw line. They missed 10 layups. They started 3 of 12 from beyond the arc, and they turned the ball over 15 times.
And they still won.
Not only they won, Iceman, they were down 26-16 in the first 5 minutes of that game. And you figured this was going to be one of those nights that Bearcat fans were cautioned of when they went into their first year of Big 12 play. Yep. They're going to be nights where home or away, you're going to get blown out. You're not going to be able to match wits and match the strength and the talent level of your Big 12 brethren. Well, they proved everybody wrong. And I'll tell you, Wes Miller has the backs of his players as well as any coach I've seen in recent memory. He will defend them to the end. And what he did for John Newman III after the Texas game, when John Newman had a chance to put the Bearcats up 3 in Oklahoma. Sorry, the Texas player comes down the court and hits the runner to.
He traveled, by the way. I'm just throwing that out there. He traveled.
I made the mistake, by the way, of asking Wes Miller after the game if he saw that play and whether or not there was a travel. He did not like the question. I can understand that. What's the head coach supposed to say? The referee the call? Come on.
Yeah, well, if he does, he's fine, probably.
Right, absolutely.
All right, now we got a couple comments here. We're about 51 minutes. I'll get you out of here quick. I'll get these last 2 comments here. Ryan here says, what are the Cincinnati Bearcats' men's basketball chances of making the tournament?
Right now, I'd say good if they finish 500. That would put them at 9-9. That would put them at I believe 22 wins. That'll get them in.
How many teams do you think are getting there from the Big 12? 9?
I'm going to say 8.
8? Okay.
I think 8 will get in if it's a typical season in the Big 12 where everybody's knocking everybody off. I mean, Oklahoma hasn't won on the road yet, and they play the Bearcats at UC on Saturday at 1. I'll be there for that game. That's an intriguing game for the Bearcats, because if the Bearcats can win that game at home, and Oklahoma has not won on the road in the Big 12 yet, then they'll be 3-2 in the Big 12. They'll have 3 wins over top 20 teams, one of which, of course, was at BYU. The other 2 would be at UC. That would be quite the feather in the cap to start the season. And the Bearcats would have some distinct momentum going forward. And I think, if they beat Oklahoma on Saturday, back-to-back wins over ranked Big 12 teams, I think the Bearcats will probably be 25th in the nation next Monday.
Hell yeah. I think it's tracks. They're playing, I think it's 5 or 6 ranked teams in a row. I don't remember them ever doing that. I mean, and it's not the NCAA tournament. This is Big 12. This is got to be the best basketball conference ever. I mean, I remember when we got into the Big East, I'm like, oh my goodness, this can be a big time step up. This is 10 times harder than what we went through the Big East. And Wes Miller said it on the broadcast after the game. He goes, this is what we live for. He goes, and I love it. And I'm like, dude, you got to want to compete for every ounce of everything.
Bearcats play like their coach loves it.
Right.
That's the thing. And that's what's going to give the Bearcats a fighting chance in a lot of these games where, the Bearcats don't shoot well, like I mentioned. They turn the ball over, which is a problem. But they still rebound. They got out rebounded the other night, but they got a lot of key offensive rebounds when it mattered. So sometimes the rebounding stat is a little skewed to me and not a telltale sign. By the way, Crypt Keeper, I'm not a Maryland fan.
I was going to put that one up.
I went to Villanova. So if you're wondering where my allegiances lie, that's the deal.
There you go. And the one thing real quick about the offensive rebound, I promise to let you after this. that first of all, Jameer Nelson was out of bounds when he rebounded that one ball in the game.
Yeah, he was. No, I had a perfect view. I said to the guy next to me, by the way, he was out of bounds and didn't reestablish himself in. That was a clear missed call.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the call was on Aziz.
God, that was
at the end of the
regulation. He jumped straight up. I mean, he's 7 feet tall.
First of all, if you're mugging the guy and hammering him, okay, I get it. That I get. That's not what happened there.
No.
With the touch foul, I thought Wes was going to lose his mind. He did lose his mind. I thought something's going to happen bad to Wes. The reaction was very disturbing to say the least, at least the visual of him reacting.
Well, I was getting back to the thing with Jameer Nelson. That was in the middle of, I think, 4 consecutive times where we got out rebounded. I'm down here screaming like, "Grab the ball!" And then Jameer Nelson gets out. I'm like, dude, we're not going to win this game. You got to be kidding me. So there's so many things that went against them to win this. I
awesome. Agree, and that's one of the things I wrote about in my column is they won that game despite everything, and that's a very good sign for a Cincinnati team going forward.
Exactly. Trags, you're awesome. We're 55 minutes into it. I don't want to keep you any longer, but go up, check him out. If you want Bearcat coverage, you're going to be going. I'm jealous. You're going to be going to go to Arizona and doing some training camp stuff. So I'm definitely going to have to hit you up there so I can see some sunshine and some palm trees while I'm freezing my ass off here in Ohio.
You know what this is?
It's a golf swing.
That is exactly what that
is. So what's your handicap? You got a handicap?
Let's say it's north of 18.
Hey, speaking of golf outings, we do the Jackpot Joey golf tournament. It'll be the second year this year. If you're interested in playing, I'll let you know.
What time of year is it, by the way?
It's in May. I think it's May. It's either May 16th or May 19th. I can't remember, but I can hit you up and let you know if you want to play in it.
All right, that sounds good.
Awesome. All right, Trags. Hey, plug some stuff before I let you go, man.
All right, here we go. Ready? On X at Trags, TRAGS. Online, CLNS Cincy. That's CLNSCINCY.com. And of course, on my YouTube page, youtube.com/@JungleRoarPod.
There you go. Well, Trags, appreciate it. Make sure you guys go check it out. And like I said, go check out his YouTube channel. It's really I listen to it on the podcast.
One more thing. One more thing.
What you got?
My CLNS Cincy, because the Jungle Roar Pod is exclusively Bengals content.
Right.
The rest of the YouTube content for Cincinnati, if you're wondering, is our new CLNS Cincy YouTube page. That's Cincinnati Sports Studio.
Ooh, it's almost
Google like Cincinnati Sports Studio. We're working on. I'm trying to get CLNS to shorten that, but Studio. If you do that, you'll find all of the other YouTube video from UC, Xavier, the Reds. You name it, it'll all be up there.
It's almost like Cincinnati Sports with Strawberry Ice. It's too long of a name.
Yeah, a little bit. Hold on a minute. I just want to make sure I got you here. I think I do.
All right.
You're very patient.
I am very patient. Hey, you should tell my wife that sometimes.
I will.
Dar says his handicap is his swing. Dude, mine is too. That's my handicap is my swing.
By the way, it is youtube.com/@Cincinnati Sports Studio. There
so
you
you have the @. Gotcha.
Yes,
Gotcha.
correct.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful time. Track, seriously, thank you as always for coming on. I do appreciate you. You and Skinny are my two most reliable guys, so I appreciate it, man.
All right. And if you're going to throw me in there with Skinny, I guess that's a good
Well, I can throw you in there with Tony Pike, but he never comes on my show. He just likes trolling me.
All right. Iceman, be good.
Take it easy. See you, Trax.
Bye.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Trax is an awesome dude. Go follow him on everything he just said. Make sure you wrote it down because, well, I didn't, but I follow him on everything anyway. Anyway, reminder: this Saturday we're going to be at one of the best, and I mean, I'll just say it, the best barbecue joint in the city of Cincinnati. That's right, Midwest Best Barbecue. They are a new sponsor to the show. We are going to be doing a live show there this Saturday at 2 o'clock. There you go. At 2 o'clock. Join us there. We'll be giving away 4 Cyclones tickets versus Walleye, a Marvel hat, and a Marvel hoodie. The reason it's a Marvel hat and a Marvel hoodie because it's Marvel night at the Cyclones game. Now, we'll be giving it away live on the show. So the way to get it is go to ZTV Online, register there, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. So when I give it away on the show, you see who wins. Now, you don't have to physically be at Midwest Best to win the ticket and stuff, but if you would come hang out, eat some good chicken wings, and hang out with me and Bengals captain and Tim and Nicole, who are some great people, love them to death. Come hang out with us this Saturday, 2 o'clock. Or, if you're hungry, you're driving around, go out to Midwest Best, and you can sign up there. They got the QR code and everything all right there for you. So thanks to everybody who's been watching. You can check me out. I've been on ZTV Online, YouTube. We're at 2,493. Facebook, 3,361. X, 3,689. I'm also on Rumble. You can follow me on all those, plus Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. I'll be pulling this out later on tonight, put it on the podcast. It's on BeanPod, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher Play, pretty much wherever you get your podcast. Please make sure you rate, like, and review. Leave a comment and a 5-star review so more Cincinnati fans can find my podcast. YouTubers, do me a favor. If you haven't done it yet, hit the thumbs up, hit the likes, hit the subscribe, share it out. Help me out with the algorithm here because in March, I can actually try to go be monetized again. So if you guys can get more people to it and YouTube goes, wow, he's actually got a pretty good following. Maybe we'll help the guy out and we'll monetize him again and we'll actually put a show out more. I would greatly appreciate it. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful evening. I'll see you guys tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Friday, I think. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it'll be an early show tomorrow. I want to get that out there for everybody. Tomorrow will be an early show because I have the great Dan Horde, who's the Bearcat broadcaster, and the Cincinnati Bengals broadcaster. He'll be on. We'll be doing the show at 4 o'clock. So that's when Dan can join me. So make sure you guys put that on your calendar. That tomorrow's show will be live at 4 o'clock with Dan Horde. All right. Other than that, ready? Throw it up. That's just sports, baby. See ya!